Welcome to the Page of Crime. Here we go over true crime events from all over the world. Before we get into this video, I would first like to send a big thanks to all my subscribers and all those that are liking the content, sharing, and leaving comments. I really do appreciate it. On this episode, we are going to go over a case that drew nationwide attention. This crime takes place in Adachi City, Japan, in 1988. Born on January 18, 1971, Junko Furuta, Gutian Shunzi, was a bright student from Misato, Saitama Prefecture, where she grew up and lived with her parents, older brother, and younger brother. She was a 17-year-old senior at Yashio Minami High School. Junko was well liked by her classmates and teachers. She was a beacon of potential, distinguishing herself through excellent academic performance and a commendable work ethic. Working part-time at a plastic molding factory from October 1988, she was saving up for a graduation trip. Junko also accepted a job at an electronics retailer, where she planned on working after graduation, a testament to her foresight and dedication. Junko was also a dreamer. She harbored ambitions of becoming an idol singer, a dream she hoped to pursue after her graduation. Junko was very known among the boys at her school because of her looks and intelligence. And then there was Hiroshi Miyano, a boy that was the complete opposite of Junko. Hiroshi Miyano was a school bully. Despite being in private school, he was involved in various crimes, a figure feared by peers and teachers alike. His connections to the Yakuza, a notorious Japanese crime syndicate, amplified this fear. Even his parents were afraid of him. Some say Hiroshi was smitten by Junko's beauty and intelligence, proposed to her, expecting an easy acceptance. But Junko politely turned him down, but in reality this never took place, as Hiroshi never knew Junko up to this point. By the summer of 1988, Hiroshi and his friends Joe Ogura, Nobuharu Minato, and Yasushi Watanabe were all school dropouts and began their descent into the world of organized crime. Chinpira, low-ranking Yakuza. They used Nobuharu Minato's family home in Adachi, Tokyo, as a base for their illicit activities, which ranged from theft and extortion to assault and rape. On November 8th, they crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. They abducted and gang-raped a 19-year-old woman in Adachi, a crime she kept silent about due to her fear of the Yakuza. In the quiet hours of an otherwise ordinary evening on November 25, 1988, the life of Junko Furuta, a promising 17-year-old girl, was irrevocably derailed by a horrifying turn of events. Hiroshi Miyano and Nobuharu Minato, two seasoned criminals with a chilling history of sexual assault, were prowling the streets of Misato. They had a sinister agenda: to identify and prey on vulnerable women. They roamed the city on their motorcycles, their eyes scanning for potential victims. At around 8:30 p.m., while hanging out at a local place, where they frequently hung out at and where they were known to attack women. Their paths crossed with Junko's as she was innocently cycling home from her part-time job. The unsuspecting teenager was seen as an easy target. Hiroshi hatched a plan, instructing Nobuharu to knock her off her bike and then make a swift exit. The plot was executed to perfection. Nobuharu shoved Junko off her bicycle and fled, causing a scene. Hiroshi swooped in, playing the role of a good Samaritan, helping her up off the floor, claiming he saw what happened. Acting concerned, he offered to escort her home. Little did Junko know, she was walking into a trap. Having gained Junko's trust, Hiroshi led her to a deserted warehouse. There he dropped the friendly facade, revealing his true, monstrous self. Claiming to be a member of the infamous Yakuza, he forced her to obey his commands. He would then proceed to rape Junko. The nightmare didn't end there. Hiroshi took her to a hotel in Adachi, where he attacked her once more, using threats against her and her family to keep her silent. He later called Nobuharu Minato's house from the hotel, bragging to Joe Ogura. Joe Ogura told him not to let Junko leave, so he and his friends could sexually assault her as well. Hiroshi decided to keep Junko captive, allowing his friends to share in his vile actions. At around 3 in the morning on November 26th, Junko was taken to a park where Nobuharu, Joe, and Yasushi Watanabe were waiting. They each took turns assaulting her, marking a horrific escalation in Junko's ordeal. The group then used their Yakuza connections to instill fear in Junko, warning her that any attempt to escape would result in her family being killed. Nobuharu agreed to allow Junko to be taken to his. The other members of the gang smuggled her into the Minato residence, where she was kept confined in a room on the second floor. Nobuharu's house became her prison. Nobuharu's parents were home most of the time, but Junko was forced to pretend to be his girlfriend. However, once the boys realized that his parents had no intention of involving the police, they abandoned the pretense. On the 27th of November, Junko's parents called the police to report their daughter missing. The captors, fearing investigation, forced Junko to call her mother, to discourage further investigation. She was made to convince her mother that she had run away and was safe with friends, effectively halting any immediate search for her. From November 25th to January 4th, 1989, Junko was held captive. On the night of the 28th of November, the captors would invite Tetsuo Nakamura and Koichi Ihara to assault her sexually. She would try to run away, but was stopped. Hearing the commotion, Nobuharu Minato's mother went to check on the boys, and they told her they were just messing around and everything was fine. From here, Junko would go through unimaginable torture. They shaved her pubic hair, forced her to dance naked, sleep outside in the cold winter with little clothing, and even sleep in the freezer. Objects were inserted into her vagina and anus, including a metal rod, a bottle. She was force-fed alcohol, milk and water made to inhale paint thinner, smoke multiple cigarettes at once, and was repeatedly burned on her legs and arms with lighters and cigarettes. They would also force her to masturbate and dance naked in front of guests. One of Hiroshi Miyano's friends was invited over and witnessed the scene and shared the information with his brother, explaining exactly what he saw. The brother then decided to tell his parents, who then contacted the police. Despite the tip-off to the police from a friend of one of the captors, the authorities would turn up to the home but were convinced by the parents of Nobuharu Minato, one of the captors, that Junko was not in their home. The police took them at their word and left. Her torture was so severe that after 20 days she couldn't walk. She had extreme injuries and infections set in. She could no longer even walk up and down the stairs to use the bathroom, and became solely confined to the bedroom, laying on the floor due to weakness. She lost full control of her bladder and bowels due to her internal anatomy being destroyed, especially after using hot bulbs and fireworks that they inserted into her genitals. Her face was so beaten, her nasal cavity clotted, making it hard to breathe, and her brain shrunk from the damage. She was also forced to eat live cockroaches and drink her own urine. By the end of December, Junko was extremely malnourished, fed only small amounts of food, and so injured and sick that she couldn't keep anything down. This led her captors to inflict further punishment by crushing her hands with dumbbells. One chilling episode occurred 2 weeks into her abduction. The captors, in a drunken state, left Junko unattended. She seized this opportunity to sneak out of the room to call the police, but before she could utter a word, Hiroshi Miyano found her, took the phone, and told the police that he called the wrong number. Her punishment for this transgression was a severe beating and dousing her legs in lighter fluid and being set on fire. She would even beg them to just kill her, but the torment didn't stop there. The captors mutilated her body, burning her with cigarettes, shaved her hair off and cutting off her breasts. As her ordeal wore on, Junko's physical condition deteriorated rapidly. Her beauty faded, replaced by the sickly pallor of a person on the brink of death. Her wounds so infected, they started emitting a rotting smell. This drove the captors to lose interest in her, but not before Miyano and his friends had violated her with their friends over 400 times. Some say it was over 100 different men. One time she was even raped by 12 different men in the same day. This caused them to go out and gang rape another 19-year-old woman in Adachi at a motel on the 27th of December, keeping her in captivity, but she was released afterwards. But before her release, they hung her to the ceiling fan by her wrists and used her as a human punching bag, naked. On January 4th, 1989, Miyano, angered by a lost game of mahjong, unleashed his fury on the helpless girl Junko. The captors subjected her to more beatings, burned her face with hot wax, and shaved her hair off. After she was picked up and kicked so hard, she fell onto a stereo unit and began having convulsions. As her body convulsed, considering the fact that she was bleeding heavily and pus was squirting out of her infected burns, they covered their hands in plastic bags and continued to beat her. They dropped an iron exercise ball on her stomach multiple times, crushing her abdomen. In an act of sheer cruelty, Miyano doused Junko's body in lighter fluid and set her alight. Junko tried to put out the fire, but her strength finally gave out. The attack lasted roughly 2 hours. Junko suffered immensely. The following day, at around 10 a.m., Junko Furuta succumbed to her injuries and passed away. Less than 24 hours after her death, Nobuharu Minato's brother called to tell him that Junko appeared to be dead. They rushed to the house. Her tormentors, fearing the consequences of their actions, wrapped her body in a blanket, placed it in a travel bag, and then in a 55-gallon drum, which they filled with wet concrete. At around 8 p.m. on the 5th of January, they dumped the drum in a vacant lot near a construction site on the island of Wakasu in Koto Ward, Tokyo. The lot was a popular illegal dumping ground. The group with Miyano had raped women before, but they usually let them go afterward. What possessed them to reach this level of brutality? On January 23, 1989, two of the boys, Hiroshi Miyano and Joe Ogura, were arrested for the kidnapping and gang rape of another woman in December 1988, which they committed the same time Junko was with them held captive. On March 29th, during an interrogation, the police questioned them about a different murder case, one involving a woman and her 7-year-old son. Hiroshi, in a state of panic, mistook their line of questioning for another case, the murder of Junko Furuta. He believed that one of the officers was aware of the murder of Junko and his involvement in it. He believed that his accomplice, Joe Ogura, had already confessed to the police about Junko's murder. Hiroshi then revealed the whereabouts of her body. The police were baffled by his confession, but their bewilderment soon turned into horror when they discovered Junko's concrete-encased body and not the woman in question. The woman and her 7-year-old son that took place several days before Junko's abduction is a case that remains unsolved. The police found the drum that contained Junko's body at Wakasu in Koto, where Wakasu Park is currently located. The physical state of Junko was so horrific that they had to identify her through fingerprints. After being told about the details of her murder, Junko's mother fainted and had to be taken for psychiatric treatment. Arrests came swiftly. Joe Ogura was arrested on April 1, 1989, for another sexual assault and was subsequently charged for Junko's murder. Other accomplices were also apprehended, including Nobuharu Minato, Nobuharu Minato's brother, and Yasushi Watanabe. Tetsuo Nakamura and Koichi Ihara were charged with rape after their DNA was found on and inside of Junko. Junko Furuta's funeral was held on April 2, 1989. It was a somber occasion, with Junko's future employer presenting her parents with the uniform she would have worn at her job that was placed in her casket. During the ceremony, which was attended by a lot of people, it was an emotional sight. One of her friends delivered a eulogy written by her classmates. "Jun-chan, welcome back. I never dreamed we would meet again like this. You were subjected to such cruelty, weren't you? You went through so much, didn't you? I'm upset with myself that I went on living, unaware of what was happening. You were always so gentle and cheerful. Jun-chan, the happy coat we made together for the festival looked wonderful on you. I'll never forget that. We will absolutely not let Jun-chan's death be in vain. As we step into adulthood, we'll strive for a world where such heinous crimes no longer exist. And through tough times, we won't give up. We'll do our best, keeping Jun-chan in our hearts and pushing forward. The principal even brought your diploma. Thanks to this, all 47 of us in Class 8 were able to graduate. Jun-chan, there's no more pain or suffering now. Rest peacefully. Farewell. Jun-chan, from all of us in Year 3, Class 8 at Yashio High School." The trial began on July 31, 1989. Due to Japan's juvenile law, the identities of the defendants Hiroshi Miyano, Joe Ogura, Shinji Minato, and Yasushi Watanabe were kept secret, as they were all legally juveniles, under age 20, known only as A, B, C, and D. Tetsuo Nakamura and Koichi Ihara were identified as E and F. Junko was identified as G. The media was prohibited from revealing the identity of a juvenile charged with a serious crime. On July 20, 1990, the court held sentencing. All 4 criminals confessed to causing bodily injury resulting in death, rather than admitting to outright murder. The court sentenced them for abduction for the purpose of sexual assault, confinement, rape, assault, murder, and abandonment of a corpse. Hiroshi Miyano, age 18, was identified as the ringleader. He received 17 years in prison, the maximum sentence before life imprisonment. The other culprits received varying sentences. Joe Ogura, aged 17, received 5 to 10 years in juvenile prison. Nobuharu Minato, aged 15, received 5 to 9 years. Yasushi Watanabe, aged 16, received 5 to 7 years. Tetsuo Nakamura and Koichi Ihara would also get sent to juvenile prison. Yet the horror didn't end there. Nobuharu's parents and brother, who knew of the atrocities occurring within their home and did nothing, and had even lied to police when they did turn up to the address, were never charged. They claimed fear of their increasingly violent son and his Yakuza connections as their reason for silence. The sentences, viewed by many as too lenient for such a heinous crime, sparked outrage. The victims' family were devastated by the loss of their daughter and were dismayed by the sentences. The public, and even some journalists, expressed their dismay. Many speculated that the light sentences were a product of the Japanese juvenile justice system's focus on rehabilitation over punishment. The court didn't protect Junko's identity as a minor. Many people called this out after seeing the media splash Junko's name and photograph in print and television. This upset some of the journalists at Shukan Bunshun, a Japanese magazine. They found and leaked the names and pictures of the boys, exposing their identity. Kazuyoshi Hanada, a chief editor, said they were inhumane and didn't deserve human rights. In response to the public outcry, the Tokyo District Court and the prosecutor's office received an onslaught of complaints demanding harsher sentences, most demanding the death penalty. The media reported that the sentencing was a gross failing of Japan's juvenile law. The Furuta family filed a civil suit against the Misato family, winning reparations after the Misato family sold their home. All 4 boys appealed their sentences in July 1991, and 3 received lengthier terms by Tokyo High Court. Hiroshi's sentence increased to 20 years, while Nobuharu and Yasushi each received an additional 2 years. The aftermath of this case affected the lives of everyone involved. Hiroshi's parents sold their family home and paid Junko's parents approximately 50 million yen in compensation, roughly £200,000. 2 police officers that came to the Misato house to follow up a call about the young girl being there and didn't even care to check the home lost their jobs after this came out for not following protocol. Joe Ogura was released in 1999 and changed his name to Joe Kamisaku. He started a job in IT. He got married in 2000 to a Chinese woman. They would soon divorce to where he would return to his mother's home in Saitama. He would then leave his job as he became involved with Yakuza. In July 2004, he was arrested for assault and confinement of Takatoshi Isono, the manager of a hostess club. He thought his girlfriend may have been involved with him. So he beat him and kidnapped him, taking him to another location and beating him for hours, letting him know he is a killer and will have no problem ending his life. He would get caught for the attack and was sentenced to prison for another 7 years. He would only do 4 years and was released in 2009 again. Upon release, he had no one. He lived alone in an apartment in Saitama and was now on psychiatric medication. On July 16, 2022, Joe collapsed in his apartment and managed to get his head stuck between the toilet bowl and the tank, where he choked on his vomit, passing away at age 51. He would be discovered by his mother. Joe Ogura's mother, who rather than showing remorse for her son's actions and blaming the victim for her son's ruined life, allegedly vandalized Junko's grave a number of times, to the point they would end up having to move Junko's body to an undisclosed location in Japan. When you look up her burial details, it states she was buried in Paradise North Cemetery in Houston, Harris County, Texas, in the United States. But this is simply to keep her burial location unknown. Nobuharu Minato, who had changed his name to Shinji Minato, found himself again on the wrong side of the law in 2018. Accused of assaulting a company employee over a parking spot, he used a metal baton to beat him. He then used a knife to slash the person's throat. The incident took place on the Kawaguchi Road, Saitama. Authorities rushed the victim to the hospital. Minato would be in court once again and eventually received a suspended sentence and 3 years probation. Hiroshi Miyano, now Hiroshi Yokoyama, seemed to continue his criminal tendencies, even bragging about his Yakuza connections. He was suspected in a fraud case only 4 years after his release, although he was never formally charged. The only perpetrator who seemingly stayed clear of legal troubles post-release was Yasushi Watanabe, who was released in 1996. However, his life took a tragic turn when he developed a neurodegenerative disease in 2005. Unable to afford treatment, Watanabe passed away in May 2021 at the age of 49. The 2 other participants in this horrifying crime, Tetsuo Nakamura and Koichi Ihara, were released by 2000, both married and had children. In the end, Junko Furuta and her family never received the justice they truly deserved, let down by the court system, and their laws not to serve death to any under 20, as they are considered minors. But why try so hard to keep all the murderers' names safe, but not Junko, who was also underage? But her name was put out on the news, in the papers. Maybe the Yakuza had something to do with the criminals getting off so easy, and being able to commit more crimes once free from prison. One can only wonder. Rest in peace. Junko, my condolences go out to your family and all touched by this devastating event. If you have made it to the end, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy the true crime content. If you get time, I have other crime stories on my channel also. Thanks for watching. Until next time, like, comment and subscribe. Hit that notification bell to stay up to date with all the latest videos. You could always help by sharing the video also. Stay safe.